At the age of 10, I had my first run-in with the law. It was a New York City subway ride gone wrong. I was falsely accused of a crime I didn't commit. Racially profiled, arrested, put in handcuffs, taken into Brooklyn's 77th precinct, questioned by the police officers, and pressured into confessing to something I just didn't do. At the age of 21, I had my second run-in with the law. This time on the other side of the law. Now, a student at Georgetown Law School. I was on a career path uncommon for most young men like me. Young men who are often marginalized and not given a fair chance. This is a long way from what could have been an ill fate for that terrified 10-year-old boy who had no clue what life had in store for him. This is a story of overcoming barriers, obstacles. This is a story of breakthroughs. This is a story of Bruce Jackson. I grew up in pre-gentrified Crown Heights. At the age of 9, we moved to Manhattan, right across the street from Lincoln Center, which is Midtown Manhattan. And my mother taught myself and my entire family how to travel from Manhattan to Brooklyn, because that's where my entire family lived. So prior to catching the local train, I noticed that there were a cop and a Caucasian man looking at me. And the cop and my eyes locked. And he started proceeding my direction because the Caucasian man was saying, "That's in." And so what do you do if you're 10 years old in New York City at that time? You run. And the only way for me to run was in the front of the train. I jumped on the track, stepped over the third rail, which is the electrical rail that powers the entire train system. And I stepped on the platform and ran underground from one station to the other. And by the time I got to the other station, the cops were there, they arrested me, put handcuffs on me, took me to the 77th precinct, not far from my grandmother's house. And then ultimately they took me into an interrogation room in one of those old-fashioned brown chairs and started to convince me, or try to convince me, to actually confess to a crime I didn't commit. And for some strange reason, this little skinny 10-year-old black boy did not agree or confess to a crime he didn't commit. And ultimately, after about 3 hours, my mother and my uncle came to pick me up, and we proceeded to my grandmother's house. And it wasn't until about 2 weeks later that my mother called and they actually informed her that they caught the person who committed the crime. For one, I was afraid of the cops. I grew up in an environment where I saw the injustice that took place against people in my community. So I didn't think the cop was coming to be my friend or to rescue me. I thought there was perhaps some abuse that would have taken place. I think it just reinforced my belief in the police system. I was scared at that point, and as a grown man, I'm still scared, right? So it just kind of reinforced what was going on then, and unfortunately, it's still going on today. Even at 18, as a senior in high school, with no encouragement from my teacher, I just knew I had to do something. I mean, there was no other option available for me except to go to college. So when I finally went to Hofstra, it was a summer program I had to complete. And after 2 weeks, I wanted to quit. And I called my mother, and mother said, "Son, you're in pain, you can come home, but don't confuse my mother for someone who didn't want me to pursue an education." My mother just really felt the pain that I was going through and didn't want her baby boy to suffer. I called my aunt, and my aunt said, "Bruce, you're not coming home." And her explanation was, "Your grandmother picked cotton." She said, "I picked cotton, your mother picked cotton," couldn't look white people in the face, and had to say, "Yes, ma'am, no, ma'am." No one in our family ever graduated from college in any generation. And she hung up. And so at that point, I realized that my journey wasn't my journey. I had to do it for other people. And that's where my strength came. And I had a purpose in life to inspire other people who came behind me as well, who were family members and who weren't family members, who had obstacles, and try to show them how to break through. Well, the interesting thing about it, and people will hear about it when they read my book, I had a passion or an interest on being on Broadway when I was a kid. And so I took dance lessons, singing lessons, acting lessons. But one of the things I failed to do was bet on myself when I had to make a decision. So that's something I regret. So practicing entertainment law was a way for me to be in the industry and to protect those who I thought needed to be protected. Our first client, really, I have to give a lot of credit and respect to Pete Rock, CL Smooth. They were our first client. Then it was LL, of course, Busta Rhymes, Heavy D, the Lost Boys, Lil' Kim, Junior Mafia. So we had a real robust clientele. I think one of the biggest accomplishments we did early on, we represented LL Cool J, and we were able to get him ownership of his masters, which was something that was rarely done at that point, and still rarely done today, that an artist actually owned their master recordings. So that was an accomplishment. And it kind of set an example for others to follow. The digital transformation for the music industry took place in 2000. We used to distribute records physically, physical albums, and then we went to digital distribution. And so it was my goal to learn as much as I can about this digital space, this technology space, and Microsoft was a perfect match for that. They were looking for someone to help them build their digital media department, and I was looking to join someone who can teach me. Some of my greatest accomplishments at Microsoft, I think I closed probably 2 of the biggest deals in the company's history. That's big. Closing billion-dollar deals is exciting. The adrenaline flows. But I think what's also important to me, when I managed a $20 billion team, I had an extremely diverse team. I had 15 women, of which 7 were African Americans, 3 African American males, 2 Asian males, 2 Latino males, 2 Caucasian males. Diverse team that I wanted to really send a message, not just internally, but externally, that, hey, you can have a team this diverse, managing a portfolio of $20 billion and be successful. Part of my book is, people may look at me and say it's about inspiring African Americans, but no, my journey's bigger than that. It's about inspiring women. It's about inspiring immigrants. It's about inspiring people, the LGBTQ plus community, right? We all have barriers and obstacles. And if I can do it, so can you, despite all the negative noise that you may hear and the lack of resources. You can fight through it.